Today, we're diving into the minds of top performers to figure out what really separates the good from the great. We're going to break down the mental models they use and, more importantly, how you can start using them too.
Have you ever wondered about this? You see someone who just gets it almost instantly, or they master a new skill while you're still on page one, and you can't help but think, are they just wired differently? Well, what if it's not about raw talent at all? What if it's about their approach? The common belief is that you're either born with it or you're not. Talent is this magical thing. But the real reason high performers get ahead isn't some innate gift. It's that they literally think differently. And the best part? Thinking is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned.
Okay, so where do we begin? Well, before we can build new, better ways of thinking, we kind of have to tear down the old ones that are holding us back. And it turns out there are a few mental traps that almost all of us fall into, most of the time without even realizing it. So let's break down these three traps. First, we've got the results-only focus. This is that feeling of, am I there yet? It makes us impatient, and we quit way too early. Then there's the fear of failure, the fear of looking stupid, which keeps us from trying anything new. And finally, my favorite, passive consumption. That endless scrolling, watching, and reading that feels so productive, but isn't. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We can consume information for hours and feel like we're becoming experts. But knowledge you don't apply is just trivia. It creates this illusion of understanding. You feel like you know it, but when it comes time to actually do something with it, nothing. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, oh great, I'm stuck in all three traps, I want you to hear this story. It's about a guy named Adam Koo, and it's some of the best proof I've ever seen that you can fundamentally change the way you think, no matter where you're starting from. So when Adam Koo was a kid, his teachers basically wrote him off. They called him a dunce, he failed his classes, he hated school, he couldn't get into any good high schools. But then his parents sent him to this special course on accelerated learning. And what happened next was, well, it's just incredible. He learned new strategies for thinking and studying, and in just 2 years, he went from the absolute bottom of his class to getting into one of the top schools in Singapore. He eventually became a top 1% student at his university. Get this, his brain didn't change, his strategy did. And his journey really proved what his mentor, Tony Buzan, always said. Intelligence isn't some private club. It's not reserved for a chosen few. It is a skill that can be trained and developed. And the real takeaway here is so powerful. If he could do it, why can't we?
All right, so how do we actually make that shift? Let's get into the specifics. Let's compare the mental habits of average thinking versus the kind of thinking that really drives high performers. So, first up, an average thinker is obsessed with the outcome. Their main question is, how do I get to the finish line fast? But a high performer, they focus on the process. They ask a totally different question. What's one small thing I can improve on today? They trust that if they just keep laying down one perfect brick at a time, eventually they'll have a massive wall.
Okay, this next one is a huge game changer. Most of us see a mistake and think, I failed. It's a dead end. But high performers, they see mistakes as pure data. That's it. It's not personal. It's just feedback. Instead of I failed, they ask, what did this teach me? Every error is just a clue for the next attempt. And honestly, that's why they seem to improve so much faster than everyone else. And this brings us right back to that illusion of understanding. High performers are constantly fighting against it. They don't just let information wash over them. No way. They wrestle with it. They take notes, they test out the ideas, they try to break them, and, this is key, they try to explain what they've learned to other people. Because they know you haven't really learned a thing until you can actually use it. So we've got the mindset, but what about the tools? How do you actually put this active learning stuff into practice? Let's check out two of the most powerful methods that Adam Koo used to completely rewire his brain for success.
The first tool is something called mind mapping. Now, you've probably heard of it, but the reason it works so well is that it breaks you out of that boring, linear, line-by-line note-taking. It uses keywords, colors, and images to engage your whole brain, both the logical part and the creative part, to organize ideas in a way that your mind can actually remember.
And seriously, it's so easy to do. You just put your main idea right in the middle of the page. Then you draw branches out from it for the big subtopics, using just a couple of keywords for each branch. Then you just add some color and little doodles to make it all stick. This is the exact technique Adam Koo used to summarize an entire chapter of a textbook on a single page. Imagine how much faster you could study.
Okay, the second tool is all about hacking your memory. The thing is, our brains are terrible at remembering abstract stuff like numbers and words, but they are absolutely amazing at remembering images. So to remember the first few digits of pi, 3.1415, don't just repeat the numbers. Instead, picture a giant pie that costs a ridiculous $14.15. That silly, vivid image is way easier to recall. And the rule is simple. The weirder the mental picture, the better you'll remember it.
So we have the mindset, we have some tools. The big question is, what's next? How do we actually turn all this information into real-world action starting like right now?
You start right here with this one tiny number, the 1% rule. Forget about some massive, life-altering change overnight. That almost never works. All you need to do is commit to getting just 1% better every single day. It feels like nothing, but the way that compounds over time, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
So here are 3 super simple ways to start. First, change your questions. Instead of asking, why am I so bad at this? Ask, okay, what's my very next step? Second, turn knowledge into action. After you're done here, ask yourself, how am I going to use just one of these ideas today? And finally, give yourself permission to be a beginner. Every expert you admire was once totally clueless. It's just part of the journey.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't about brute force. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about finding the right lever. So don't just put in more hours. Start thinking better.
So, we're at the end of our time together. But for you, this is really just the beginning. I'll leave you with this one question to take with you. Looking at your work, your learning, your life, what is the 1% you are going to improve today?